The moment my husband leaned back in his chair at the divorce hearing, crossed his arms and smirked at me like he'd already won, something inside me shattered in a way I can't fully describe. He looked right at me, in front of the judge, the lawyers, the damn universe, and said, "You'll never touch my money again." His mistress was sitting in the back row, wearing the smug look of someone who thought she'd earned a prize. I swear she even gave me this little half smile like she was pitying me. And I sat there wondering if I was truly the fool in this story, or if karma was just taking too long to do its job. But here's the question I really want to ask you. Was I wrong for what I did after that? Or would you have done the same thing if you were in my place? Because the truth is, the story didn't start in that courtroom. It ended there. Everything that led up to that moment was a slow, painful unraveling of a marriage I thought would last forever. When I first met Daniel, he wasn't wealthy. In fact, he was barely making ends meet. We were young, broke, and stupidly in love. He had dreams of starting his own business, and I believed in him more than he believed in himself. I worked 2 jobs while he built that business from nothing. I cooked, cleaned, supported, encouraged, and held everything together while he tried to build his future. And when his business finally took off, after years of sweat, sleepless nights, and financial stress, it felt like we'd both made it. I thought we were a team. I thought we were partners. I thought his success was really our success. But as it turns out, some people only remember who helped them when they're still losing. Once they start winning, they suddenly develop amnesia. For a long time, I didn't see the changes. Or maybe I did. But I kept pretending they weren't really happening. He started dressing differently, spending more time at the office, and going on business trips that didn't require any follow-up explanation. He was always distracted, always busy, always tired, too tired to talk, too tired to go out, too tired to even sit next to me on the couch. The intimacy vanished first, then the affection, then the respect. Before I knew it, I was living with a stranger who happened to share my last name. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. and saw him smiling at his phone. I asked him who he was talking to, and he said it was work stuff. But no one types work stuff with that kind of smile. The next morning, I checked the phone records, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. That's when I saw the number, a number that appeared again and again at all hours of the night, a number that would change everything. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to be that wife. So I waited. I observed. I watched him lie to my face again and again, until eventually the truth just couldn't hide anymore. I found the messages, the photos, the hotel receipts, the restaurant bills, the gifts, the months and months of betrayal. And then I saw her. Her name was Emily. She was younger, prettier, and apparently more interesting than the woman who'd spent 10 years building his life with him. And do you know what the worst part was? He didn't even try to deny it. He just stared at me and said, "You knew things weren't good between us." Like the affair was somehow my fault. Like I was the one who pushed him into someone else's arms. That night he packed a bag and left. Just like that, 10 years gone in 10 minutes. I wish I could say I cried, but honestly I just felt numb, completely hollow. The next day I spoke to a lawyer, and that's when I learned something that nearly knocked the air out of my lungs. Everything, every asset, every account, every property was in his name, legally, officially, strategically. I had worked for years, contributing every paycheck to our future, while he quietly and methodically ensured. None of it was technically mine. My lawyer told me that without proof of direct contribution to specific assets, I was entitled to almost nothing. The house, his. The business, his. The savings, his. The investments, his. The cars, his. And all of this while he was publicly preaching about building a life together. But you know what? I still had something he didn't. Something he thought he'd successfully buried. Something he forgot existed. While packing my belongings, I stumbled across an old folder buried in our filing cabinet. Inside were documents, business proposals, partnership agreements, and financial spreadsheets from the early days of his company. And on several of those documents was my signature, my handwriting, my contribution. I had helped him secure his first investor. I had signed on the initial loan as his partner. I had literally put my name on the line to build the foundation of the business he now claimed was exclusively his. Suddenly, everything changed. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't empty-handed. I had proof, and I had a chance to make things right. I told my lawyer everything. She spent weeks gathering evidence, speaking to the bank, pulling old records, and preparing for what she called a strategic counterattack. Meanwhile, Daniel paraded around town with Emily like he'd already won. They went to fancy restaurants. They posted on social media. They flaunted their happiness like two kids playing house, and I stayed quiet, completely silent. I didn't respond to his taunts. I didn't react to his insults. I didn't even acknowledge his arrogance, because I knew something he didn't know, and oh, how satisfying that silence was. Now fast forward to the middle of the story, right before everything exploded. So that's the situation I was in. A husband who cheated on me, a mistress who thought she'd stolen a life I helped build, and a courtroom waiting to determine my future. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and tell me what you would have done in my shoes. Seriously, would you have fought back the way I did? Or would you have walked away and let him keep everything? I really want to know, so tell me in the comments before I reveal the ending. Now back to that courtroom. Daniel kept smirking through the entire hearing, completely confident the judge would rule in his favor. When his lawyer presented their case, they painted me as a bitter wife chasing money I didn't earn. They talked about the business as if I had been nothing more than a bystander. They argued that I had no right to any portion of it. And the whole time, Emily sat in the back with her arms folded, like she was watching her favorite soap opera. When my lawyer stood up, the mood shifted instantly. She placed a thick folder on the table, opened it slowly, and began presenting, document after document showing my involvement in the business from day one. The signatures, the agreements, the bank records, the loan papers, the investor correspondence. It was all there, undeniable proof that I had been a foundational part of the company's creation. The judge asked Daniel to explain. He tried to lie at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. When he realized he couldn't deny it, he switched to blaming me for forcing him to let me sign things. His lawyer tried to argue the documents were outdated and irrelevant, but the judge wasn't buying it. And then my lawyer dropped the final bomb, proof that Daniel had been siphoning marital funds to support his affair, hotels, trips, gifts, restaurants, all paid for using shared finances. The judge's face went stone cold. Daniel's face went pale. Emily, who had looked so confident earlier, suddenly sank into her seat like she wanted to disappear. In the end, the judge ruled that I was entitled to 40% of the business, half of the marital assets, and reimbursement for the money he spent on his affair. Daniel exploded. He stood up, slammed his hand on the table, and yelled, "This is ridiculous! She doesn't deserve a cent!" The judge warned him to sit down or risk contempt. Emily put her face in her hands, and I just sat there quietly, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. Not happiness, not victory, just closure. A decade of emotional labor, sacrifice, and betrayal finally acknowledged. After the hearing, Daniel confronted me in the hallway. He was shaking with rage. "You ruined me," he spat. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "No, Daniel. You ruined us. I just stopped letting you get away with it." Emily stood behind him, arms crossed, looking like she was seriously reconsidering her life choices. Funny how fast loyalty disappears, when money does too. In the months that followed, Daniel's business struggled. Turns out, losing nearly half your assets overnight tends to cause problems. Meanwhile, I used my settlement to start a new life. I moved into a small but beautiful apartment. I took time to heal, to breathe, to rediscover who I was without the weight of a selfish partner dragging me down. I even invested a portion of my settlement back into myself. Therapy, education, hobbies, everything I had neglected for years. And for the first time in a long time, I started feeling whole again. Emily didn't stay with him long after that. From what I heard, she left when the money started disappearing. And honestly, that felt like karma doing what karma does best. As for Daniel, he tried reaching out months later, pretending he wanted closure or to talk things through. I blocked his number, without responding. I wasn't interested in reopening wounds that had finally healed. So that's my story. A story of betrayal, resilience, and a hard-earned outcome. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never underestimate the person you think you've broken. Sometimes they come back stronger than you ever expected. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. I'll see you all in the next story.